As I reported a few days ago, Bureau of Immigration in the Philippines are preparing for a reopening for foreign tourists, which of course is great news. But there are still some problems as I see it. I know how many of you were so excited to finally get some positive news on this, and I don't mean to rain on your parade here. But there are some things we really need to consider before travel into the Philippines once again becomes a reality for foreign tourists, and even after they open their borders. So, to find out what still needs to happen and what you need to consider, then be sure to buckle up and stay with me here. Throughout this video, I thought it appropriate to give you all the beautiful sights of the Philippines in my video clips. I hope you enjoy watching whilst I chat away, and be sure to leave your thoughts in the comments below. Now, whilst the Bureau of Immigration has made their intentions clear, they still have to get the AITF and the government on board before the country will finally reopen to foreign tourists. Now, where the IATF really stands on this, who knows? Although they gave an indication previously where they said once the general population reaches 40 to 50% fully vaccinated, then they'll consider allowing foreign tourists back into the country. They further acknowledged how important the tourism sector is to the Philippines and the many millions of people who've been struggling since international tourism ceased. At the present time, the Philippines is closing in on the 40% fully vaccinated target, and around 50% have had the first dose. So this may be very well where the BI is coming up with what seems to be a possible reopening between December 1, 2021 and mid-January of 2022. They may feel in this time the fully vaccinated will reach 50% or close to it, where the IATF and the government will then give the green light to reopen to foreign tourists. They may also factor into the equation that COVID cases in the Philippines continues to drop. And of course, many people who have contracted COVID will have natural immunity for a period of time at least. But even when the IATF and government do reopen to foreign tourists, we still have many other things to carefully consider when deciding if we should go to the Philippines. The first thing is looking at what are the conditions to enter the country. Will we need to quarantine upon arrival, and if so, for how many days? Now, we know that they've been experimenting with no quarantine for incoming citizens of late, and I do feel they realise if they want to get foreign tourism going again, then they'll need to dispense of the quarantine period. And of course, this will only apply to those who have been fully vaccinated, and they may still require a negative PCR test prior to entry. So if we decide we don't mind the conditions of entry, whatever they may be at that time, and we may still be asked to wear face masks, there are still some other issues well worth considering. In these uncertain times, we need to get, as always, comprehensive travel insurance, just in case any unexpected health issues arise while we're in the Philippines. Now, of course, we'll need to make sure this includes coverage for COVID, just in case we catch it whilst in the Philippines. It could even be very possible that the government may make having such a policy part of the conditions for entry, which really is no big deal, but we do need to check that we have the right policy before purchasing. The next issue, which I see as a very big one, is around purchasing our flights. Now, I won't get into whether or not the costs of flights will be way more expensive than they were prior to COVID, as I think different airlines will take different approaches. For example, from Sydney to Manila in June 2022, you can get return flights for around the $1,000 mark, which was comparable prior to COVID. But we'll really need to have a good look at the flights here to see if the cheapest flight will be the best option for us. The problem with the cheapest flights is often they don't allow to change those flights to a different day or to even cancel those flights. The more expensive flights, for example, may charge a fee of around $200 to change your flights if required, or even free with some tickets. The reason this will be so important is because even though you're fully vaccinated, you can still catch COVID. It's just you may not get as sick and need hospitalisation. For all purposes, you may feel very well. But when you get to the PCR test prior to departure to go back home, if it turns up positive, you won't be allowed to fly. I'd imagine you'd need to stay in the Philippines for 14 days in a hotel at your own cost. And as such, you need to find flights where you can at least pay the fee to change them. Of course, we need to factor in this very real possibility and be prepared if this happens. We need to have the extra cash to pay for the quarantine hotel, not to mention, if you're a guy who must get back home for work, then this could also cause you some issues. As it stands right now, we don't know what the conditions of entry will be for certain, and most likely, the government is still to work this out for themselves. As we know with the Philippines, nothing is ever done in a hurry, and what they decide to do today, they could change tomorrow. Now, speaking for myself, I'd rather wait 6 months to let everything settle as far as requirements go, and by that time, airlines, immigration, and so on will be used to the new protocols and procedures where it may be a smoother transition in and out of the country. And that's fine for me because I don't have a girlfriend over there who I've been patiently waiting to see for 18 months like many of you guys have. So I fully understand why so many will be very keen to get over to the Philippines as soon as the green light is given. Just bear in mind what we've said in this video. And I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments if you have any other important factors one would need to consider for many foreign guys who are thinking of going to the Philippines very soon. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.